what I've got here in front of me and what you can all see on screen is I'm logged into Maytas as a staff member. So I'm logged in as an assessor. Now, this could equally be a skills coach or it could be a tutor, but it's a staff sort of role profile. Now you can see that one of the most recent additions to the product that we've added is this dashboard that you can see here. And it's really useful for bringing all of the key analytics and information and exception reporting as well that you need to see into one place. And we've really designed this from feedback that essentially said, I want to be able to log into your system and see everything I need to action over the course of the day, week, month coming forward. Okay. Now, this dashboard that you see here is completely configurable. So each user can configure this to their own needs. It might be actually that you have a functional skills tutor that might only need a portion of what we see on screen. So they can configure that to what they need. And as you can see, if I just slowly scroll down here, we can see that we have kind of learners who are behind target. We have learners who are ahead of target. We also have one of our new widgets, which is the caseload wellbeing. So this gives an area for learners to report well-being that actually sits outside of some of those formal review processes and Ofsted processes as well. And everything you see here is a call to action. Okay, so if I look on the left-hand side in my widgets pane, I can see that I have upcoming visits. One of them is for Noah Mason, and this is a progress review. Others call it a tripartite review. But again, if I go into this, I can see that this is a direct call to action. I can click and it'll take me straight into that visit. So really, I could manage my whole caseload from this one screen. And I mentioned that I can configure this screen as well. So if I click on the little settings cog in the top right, I can then rearrange this and I can remove widgets as I need. So if I drag this over here, you can see that they just seamlessly swap over. Equally, I can remove some of these widgets if they're not needed for my role, just to kind of tidy up my home screen. And I can then go and I can save that. So this is now saving my default layout. Layouts can be applied at group level as well. So actually, as an organization, you can define how this page is laid out for different users and different groups. And we also have a team dashboard here. Okay, so we have this kind of, as the user that I'm logged in as, I'm a team member, I'm a team manager, I have staff that sit under me, and I can choose whether to see my own caseload. So this is all details about my learners, or I can go in and I can actually access a team dashboard, which shows where my staff are at, kind of which learners in my team are behind target, whether they're ahead of target, view kind of my team's caseload. So it allows me to manage my whole team from the one screen. Okay. Now what we'll do is if I go back to my own dashboard, what I'll do is let's go into one of our learners, or you could call them kind of students as well. If I go into one of these, let's take a look and just see some of those apprenticeship specific pieces that actually Maytas is really good at managing. Okay, so I'm going to click on Alice Hurst, which is just one of the demo learners in the system. And the first screen that we're taken to, again, brings a lot of information into one place. But one of the key ones is that we can see the progress for this learner on their pathway. Also, down to kind of individual element level, we can see, okay, that this learner is on a nursing degree, a nursing apprenticeship, and we can see here where they're at in terms of their entire sort of breakdown of knowledge, skills, and behaviours as well. Equally, if this learner or student was doing functional skills as well, this would show here as a separate row in this table, so we could see all of the details of any functional skills, their main standard or program that they're on, all pulled into the one place. And again, call to actions from here where we can see full details of that as well. One thing that this learner does have is tasks, so we can hover over these and we can see that actually this one is completed. We can see that some of these are actually kind of behind target, and the blue ones are ones that actually they're still ahead of target, but they're not completed yet. So again, just visually gives you a real key kind of update in terms of where this learner's at. Now, if we look at the start of kind of the apprenticeship process and what happens first, we obviously have the onboarding sort of phase. And within that, there's lots of statutory documents that need completing. One of them is the training plan. We also have the apprenticeship agreement. There's others as well as we sit in that. Now, Maytas is really good at managing the onboarding process. So as a user of the system, you can define how your training plan apprenticeship agreement look. You can make sure that you can track these as part of workflows so they're completed within that sort of 42-day period that they need to be signed off in. Otherwise, we lose funding on those. And for this learner, I can go in and I can quickly have a look at the training plan. I could do the same with the apprenticeship agreement as well. As you're all familiar with, if you deliver apprenticeships, the training plan can be quite long and complex, but we kind of simplify that as much as we can in the system. And if I scroll down here, we can see that actually we've had no signatures for this learner. So that's an action that learner needs to go in. They need to sign off the form. We also allow employer logins as well. So the employer can log in and sign off this as part of that process as well. And same for me as a staff member, I can sign that off at the end as well. Okay. So if we take a look at some of the other kind of key areas of an apprenticeship, one of them is tripartite reviews. Okay, so they have to happen between every 8 and 12 weeks. And again, we can do that through this visits section here. So we can see all of these progress reviews here. We can see how often they've taken place. We can see whether they were delayed, whether they were successful. We can also see if the employer joined that tripartite review as well. And again, if I just jump back to the summary tab for this learner, we can see we have this active workflow here for the training plan. So I can see that if I just click on the element in the top right, it's showing me that we're still awaiting for that learner to complete this element of that workflow. This will be exactly the same for a tripartite review. So even though that's scheduled frequently, every 8-12 weeks, we can see exactly where that's up to, whether it's waiting on the employer. One of the kind of key pieces of feedback that we get is that actually waiting for an employer to come in and action something is quite difficult. So we give you all the tools to track that, send emails, send notifications and things like that as well. Okay. So let's jump between some of the kind of tabs that we have here that allow you to manage that apprenticeship successfully. So we've looked at the kind of visits piece, the tripartite reviews. Now, another thing that generally happens throughout the apprenticeship journey, but primarily at the beginning of that journey, is a skill scan. Okay. Now, skill scans are used to measure where the learner's at before they start program, but also measure distance traveled. And also it's used as a basis for funding as well. So we can kind of, our RPL calculators and things can all be fed from this skill scan. Okay. So here I can see that it's showing the results for this learner. Okay, so we can see that there's been multiple skill scans taken over time, and I can see the average score. And what you'd expect to see over time is that this kind of gradually increase. Now, one of the good things about Maytas is that we can get actually the employer to do this as well. So I'm just going to go in here and I'm just going to split this just so that we can see actually where the learner has completed skill scans and where the employer has kind of filled in skill scans as well, and whether they agree. Okay, because sometimes we'll have it where the learner might think they're at a certain level and the employer disagrees slightly on that. We can also see the full history down here of where they've been completed. We can schedule new ones as well and send those out. Okay, so we can add a skill scan and just get that sent out straight away, again for the learner or for the employer as well. Okay. Now, throughout that learner journey, we need to be aware of what's happening in the coming weeks, in the coming months. And using this learner journey tool, which is available both to staff members and the learner themselves, we can see actually what's upcoming, what's outstanding as well, maybe what's been completed, but the key areas that are outstanding over the next couple of months. Now, in this case, we can see that there's 4 actions in November for this learner. One of them is the training plan needs to be completed, like we've already seen. One of them is that we need a skill scan completing. Okay, so these will both be sat with that learner waiting completion. And we also have a tripartite review, a progress review, which is taking place tomorrow. So it's showing that as well. Now, we can also see here, if I was just hover over here, we can see any past items that are outstanding as well. So it's going to expand those for us. This allows us to go back and action any of those, or we can clean them off if they're no longer required. But you can see there's a few progress reviews there sat that actually probably still need maybe an employee signature or something that we can then go and action as well. We can add items directly here. So we could go in and say, actually, I want to send another skill scan. I want to add some additional modules or standards to this learner. I want to set a manual task potentially, or I want to create a new tripartite review. All of these can be done directly from this screen. And again, the learner gets to see this as well. And they can set this as the home page as well for the learner. So really quickly, they can log in and get an instant view of what's happening over the next month in terms of their apprenticeship. Okay. Now, another piece that I wanted to jump to is just the off the job tab. Okay, so as we know, off the job is a mandatory requirement requested by Ofsted in terms of logging how many hours are completed off the job as part of that apprenticeship. Should be a minimum of 6 hours a week, and it also should be within that normal learner's working hours as well. So this is one where actually you can see here that this learner can log how many hours and what day is being recorded, but also start times, end times, how long that piece of work is for, with a calculator at the top to tell you actually whether that's enough hours or whether there's still some more hours required to meet that minimum 6 per week. Okay, so again, this calculator is pretty much done for you. You can enter the key values and it will then tell you how many hours above or below that minimum required is set. And this will all feed again back into, if I just jump to the home tab here, this will again show you on the dashboard who's behind and who's ahead of that target as well. Okay. Now, one thing that is worth looking at here is if I just jump to my own dashboard, as we are kind of jumping to our learner records and trying to kind of navigate those records as fairly quickly as we can, you can see that here we have options to jump straight to specific tabs on there. So we don't need to go to that home page of the learner and then navigate elsewhere. If we wanted to just quickly view a skill scan for this learner, I can jump straight to that tab without having to navigate through a path to get there. So really quick and easy to navigate. And another piece that we've recently developed, it's gone in one of the more recent releases, is what we call kind of the quick actions piece here. Okay, so as well as the jump to, where I can quickly navigate around the system, I can also use this quick actions piece here where I can quickly action something against that learner without even opening that learner record. So if I wanted to trigger off a skill scan, I can quickly do it from here. I can choose the module that that learner's on, set a date. I could choose whether that's for the learner, the employer, or both. It will allow me to then select which relevant employer that is. And I can then submit and trigger this directly from here. Okay, just going to add that module there. And I can then quickly trigger that. And again, I've done all of that without even going into that learner record. And there's lots of other things we can action from here as well. We can make them or request evidence from the learner. We can send them a message. We can create a journey item for them or invoke a workflow. So a workflow could again be where we come to evoke things like the training plan, the apprenticeship agreement, potentially even a tripartite review as well. Okay. Now, one thing that I'll just quickly go through this so we can see again, apprenticeship agreement or a training plan. What this allows us to do is to define the path of that document. So I'm going to get the learner to sign this off first, ask the employer to complete this next, and then it's going to come back to me as a staff member just to finalize that process. Okay, and that's that onboarding piece complete. So that's me logged in as assessor now. I quickly wanted to jump in, logged in as a learner to show you the learner view. Okay, so I'm just going to refresh this page now. So this is me now logged in as a learner, and I'm logged in as Alice Hurst, which was one of the learners that was in my caseload as a staff member. And I mentioned previously around that this learner has two outstanding actions. One of them is one of the training plan, so it's a data collection form, and the other one is a skill scan. Okay, so as soon as that learner logs in, they will get emails and things in the background and prompts as well. But as soon as that learner logs in, they're going to be asked to complete those two actions before they can really do anything else in the system. And each time they refresh this page, it's going to keep prompting them until we get those actions completed. Okay, so the first thing I'm just going to go into quickly is let's just have a look at the skill scan. So I can go in and I can, this is mapped all against my KSB, so my knowledge, skills and behaviors. And I can go through and map my score against those, add any notes that I need to that are relevant as well. And I could then complete that off. And similarly, if I go back to my homepage, it's going to prompt me again. I could equally go into my training plan. And I'm going to skip most of the details, but I can go down and I can then sign off this training plan. Okay, so I can click on to sign this training plan. This will generate a signature in the background, so it will log the date and time and who was logged in at the point of signature. And this will then automatically feed into the next stage, which is the employer in this case. So yeah, really important. As I said, that the training plans, these are all built in the system. So you can define what these look like. You can define images, logos, text that's on all of these. They can be built. There's no code required. They are drag and drop. So again, you can just build these that suit your organization and add potentially other bits into there as well if you needed to. Again, as a learner, if I just jump back to the home page, I'll just come off these actions. Again, even as a learner, I have a configurable dashboard for myself. Okay, so again, I can go into my settings and I can drag these around and make this really personable to me and put the actions that actually are more important to me at the top of the screen so they come first, or remove widgets again if needed. Now you can see here that I'll just close off the editor. You can see here that this is my journey. Okay, so this is my learner journey where I can see all of the actions that are happening in November. I can expand this and go into a bit more detail. If I wanted to just expand this out, I can then jump to the tab and see everything. I could see outstanding actions as well from here. But you can see that the learner is given everything they need to know what needs to happen next as part of that apprentice's journey. Okay. Again, two other things from here. We've looked at kind of the workflows, but it's also worth going to just to see how easy it is to do things like add evidence or add off the job. So in this case, I'll pick off the job. So if I was to click off the job here, I can quickly go in and I can add my off the job entries into here. It's telling me again how many hours that are needed for me to complete my apprenticeship. And one other thing is as well that all of these tabs again configurable. So actually, if you wanted to hide some of these fields from the learner's view, you can by all means do that. Let's just go back again to the homepage. And another thing that we have here that's visible again from the learner and from the apprentice, but the learner, the apprentice, and the staff member, as we move to the end of that kind of learner journey, is the showcase. Okay, so the showcase is work that's been highlighted as really good samples of work for that learner, either by the learner themselves or by the staff member that's put the work forward, and it allows them to export this as a showcase portfolio. So this can be given at the point of your endpoint assessment. So this can be given as evidence towards that, as a sample of really good work. It can be exported into a file that they'll accept. You can give some narratives, we can add details and mappings, and it will show all of the mappings against those KSBs that sit here. But again, I can export this, I can add files that have already been uploaded in terms of adding evidence against them. So you can see how that kind of fits from the start of that learner journey, where we have our onboarding piece, our training plans, our apprenticeship agreements, through to tracking evidence as well. So if I just go to the home page for this learner, we can see what's required of us in terms of progression. So we can see that our main aim here is 49% complete. I can see what's needed throughout my kind of apprenticeship journey. And as we get to the end, I can then export any details I need as I go through that EPA process.